Sahaj Kohli is an award-winning therapist and mental health educator. She is the founder of Brown Girls Therapy, the largest mental health and wellness community and organization for adult children of immigrants. She's a columnist for the Washington Post and recent author of the book, But What Will People Say? Navigating Mental Health, Identity, Love, and Family Between Cultures. Her words and work have been featured across media like Good Morning America, CNN, The New York Times, and others. I'd love to start this podcast off by asking, what do we need to know about your childhood to better understand your views on money?
I feel like I grew up in a very traditional immigrant family. So I'm the first in my family to be born in the West. I am the youngest of three. So I have a much older brother and a much older sister. So I kind of grew up like an only child. By the time I was growing up in adolescence, my parents kind of already made it, quote unquote. And so I had a very different childhood than my siblings in that I didn't really have to worry about where money came from. I feel very lucky and privileged in that way. But I think, I don't know. I honestly was thinking about us having this conversation, and I was trying to think about what I've learned about money. And I don't know if I was ever conscious of this when I was growing up, but looking back, I realized as I was getting into adolescence and maybe young adulthood, I think I internalized this idea that money was power. And I think for me, it was never like my dad withheld money from my mom, but my mom would have to ask for money, or my dad would put the grocery money on the table, or the money came from her parents that she then hid from my dad. Or now that I'm a married adult, you know, my mom will often be like, do you have money aside from your husband? Like I grew up kind of in this, you know, with this mentality of like, money is power, make sure you have it, keep it hidden from the man. You need to have a way out, and it's the way to protect yourself. And I think I am now able to make connections between that and maybe me wanting to work when I was young. I mean, like neither of my parents really wanted their kids to work. They we're working hard so you can focus on your studies, so you can focus on getting your education. But in my teenage years, I worked as a waitress, and my parents were really embarrassed about that. They were like, we don't want you to be working. It's a sign that we are not supporting you, which I think is so interesting, right? Because working teaches you a lot about yourself, about work ethic, about responsibility, accountability. But I think I really wanted to work. And I've always been someone who wants to work. And I think it's tied to me always wanting to have my own money, which is interesting because that's not something I really put together until I was invited on this podcast. I don't know. I mean, I think I grew up, you know, not worrying about money. I grew up working because I wanted to, not because I had to. I failed out of college. I think that's an important thing for people to know about me because I grew up in a household where education was success. Education meant money. Education meant stability. Education meant financial security. And I failed. And so in my 20s, most of my 20s was about me figuring out who am I if I'm not doing well in my academics and I'm not making a lot of money, and I was still living at home with my immigrant parents. So even though I was having these odd jobs and making a little bit of money here and there, I didn't have a salaried position until well into my late 20s when I decided to move away from my immigrant parents and then start over on my own.
How do you feel like that ties with your worth, like money and your self-worth?
I mean, I think it does. I think as a daughter of immigrants who's never done things that have been expected of me, I don't know how to cook. I got married a little later. I'm going into my late 30s and I don't have kids. I'm an entrepreneur. I think I have really tied my self-worth around figuring things out, doing it, and making it on my own and not being dependent on someone else. And I think that's the part that's tied to my self-worth, is trusting myself to be able to just take care of myself.
And do you feel like the way you grew up with, you know, seeing your mum have this belief that a woman should always have her own money on the side, do you feel like you've been able to move past that, or is it still like, you know, kind of held closely?
Yes and no. I think I'm in a partnership, thankfully, that we can have very frank conversations about money. You know, we both are earning. We know what each other's money situations look like. We're very transparent about that. And I am starting to, you know, only in the last 5-7 years, educate myself on what it means to have my own wealth, investing, set myself up for success. A lot of that is thanks to you. And I mean, seriously, it took well until I was 30 for me to figure out that I should be learning this stuff on my own. And so I think I self-sabotage sometimes in a way where I'm like, oh, I should, you know, keep a little bit aside, or I should not talk about money even with my friends, or we shouldn't be transparent about it. But I think that's also capitalism, right? And I think a lot of my work is around decolonizing psychology, decolonizing wealth, decolonizing the ways we think about these things. And so, yes, I think I still internalize it, and no, I think I'm trying to unlearn it.
I love that you talked about self-sabotaging because it's something I really want to focus on this episode. What do you see when, you either work with clients or you kind of see within your community? How do people self-sabotage when it comes to money? Like, what does that look like?
I think it's all about the money stories people have. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of that is inherited, right? Especially if you come from an immigrant background, it's like work hard, save, don't spend on frivolous things. Again, money is power. I actually remember asking the Brown Girl Therapy community about their money stories last year, and those were a lot of the common ones. It's very gendered in a lot of ways. I think if you're a woman who maybe out-earns your husband, you might self-sabotage because that might feel uncomfortable or wrong or judgmental or emasculating to the husband, right? There's like lots of little ways we inherit these stories that then cause us to self-sabotage. I mean, I think it's also about the field you're in. I think that's also gendered in some way. Like I work as a therapist, I work as a helper, I call myself a healer. And for a long time, I didn't believe that I should be earning money by helping people.
Really?
I always thought that in order to be in this field, you did it because you cared, because you were a good person, because you wanted to do good by the community. And I'm still unlearning that. I mean, this is, again, only 5 years of me being like, wait, I have to make a living. I can earn while I'm also helping the community. I'm allowed to ask for more compensation. But I think I've really internalized that I'm really struggling to reconcile helping people with making money. I feel like those are at odds.
Do you feel like that's self-sabotaging in a way?
Absolutely. Yeah, because why should, if someone else came to me saying that, I'd be like, that's ridiculous. You should absolutely be making money, right? I don't look at other people who are creating masterclasses or are therapists who charge a certain amount of money or coaches or doctors, right? We see some professions make a certain amount of money, but then there's other professions where it's like, am I allowed to? And I don't know that. I mean, I think for me, self-sabotage is also what you've been taught. Like, I wasn't taught about money. I was taught that my dad would take care of me and then I would meet a man and then he would take care of the finances. And so I think I self-sabotage just the way I talk to myself about money. So like I practice as a narrative therapist, which means when I work with my clients, I help them identify the stories they have about themselves and where do those stories come from. So if we take that concept and think about it in terms of money, at least for me, I think I was taught that I think for me, like my money story is you have to have a level of education in order to make money. You have to be a man in order to control money or know about money. And it's reinforced in different ways. Like if my whole family is together, a lot of times my brother, my brother-in-law, my dad, my husband, talking about money, finances, stocks, right? All of these things. And sometimes I'll try to chime in and be like, oh, I just learned this thing. And it's never conscious on their part. It's never like they brush me off, but I always feel like I don't belong. Am I supposed to be here? I'm being judged a little bit. I'm a woman. This isn't my place. But I don't know if it's explicit. So that's where I think it might be self-sabotage or me being like, oh, let me make myself smaller. Let me, I'm not supposed to know about money. And even when you asked me on this podcast, I remember like my first thought was like, who am I to be talking about money? I can't help someone else with money. But I think that's self-sabotage, isn't it? I think it is.
I completely agree. I mean, before we got on, I said, you're the most qualified person to talk about this topic. You're a qualified psychologist. Like you have an amazing community. That you have written a book.
Yeah.
I think you know a thing or two.
I do. I know. I mean, preparing for this, I actually looked at my husband and was like, oh my God, I'm actually doing, like when I actually think about it, I know more than I think and I'm doing better than I think I am. But I think that's also self-sabotage, right? When does it become enough? Or how do you decide what enough is?
That's very true. When you talk to people in your community, what are the typical forms of self-sabotage that you see around money? Like, are there certain things that people say or certain traits that people have that if someone was listening that they could ping and go, oh, I kind of do that too. I didn't even realize I was sabotaging.
Yeah, I mean, I think risks are a big one. So it can go in both extremes. Either you're someone who takes a lot of risks because you think maybe there's this idea of things will always work out. I don't need to plan. I don't need to figure it out, right? And so I'm not saying risks are bad, but there is sometimes a mentality of let me just do it and it'll work out rather than strategically planning for your future or making decisions based off what might be right at that time. And then the other side of being really risk averse, which is a form of self-sabotage. So I see people in the community who may not take opportunities to move up in their career or to ask for more money or to negotiate because they're scared to rock the boat. They're scared if they ask for something, they'll get fired or they'll get let go or they'll be judged in some way. And I think that's a really big immigrant learned mentality of like, don't rock the boat. I remember when I was in my career in journalism, I hadn't gotten a raise in 3 years. And I kept telling my dad, I was like, it's time for me to ask. It's time for me to ask. It's time for me to ask. And my dad was like, don't, you should just be grateful for what you have. You have really good benefits. Why does it matter? Like, you're doing really well. And I was doing fine. I mean, I'm technically living in New York City, in my mid-20s. I was still kind of living paycheck to paycheck. But for him, he was just scared for me to lose. Like, if you ask for something, you're going to lose it altogether. So there's this scarcity mindset I see in the community of like, take the opportunities right away and don't take the ones that are too risky. And I think that's a form of self-sabotage I always see in the community.
So like a scarcity mindset is a form of self-sabotage?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Scarcity mindset is this idea that there's not enough of things to go around. So you either hoard what you have in some way, right? So this can look like maybe not trusting financial institutions. I hear my mom say, make sure you have like the cash, instead of putting it in the bank, because she doesn't understand that like you can accumulate wealth when it's saved in a certain way. So I think there's like the hoarding aspect of it, but then it's also not trusting other people, not talking to other people, feeling in competition with other people, taking any opportunity you can get because you think you're going to run out of money. But then also making sure the opportunities you do take are the ones that are stable, because you don't want to basically lose what you have. So I think that mindset in itself can lead to self-sabotage because people are scared to learn something new, to try something new, to maybe spend a little money, to earn money, like little things like that, which I've had to work through myself in having a business for 5 years.
When you talk about all of this information, do you think that there are some actual steps that people do that are self-sabotaging? For example, like not tracking their money or like putting their head in the sand if like they see a bill. Is that like something that comes up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a fixed mindset almost, right? So I think self-sabotage can look like a fixed mindset where you don't trust, like you're scared to open the bill because you don't know if you'll be able to handle it. Ultimately, yes, that might be about money, but it's deeper than that. Psychologically, it's about you not trusting yourself to handle what happens. I think we can do that with literally anything, right? Avoiding a hard conversation is the same thing. You don't trust yourself to be able to communicate well, to handle if it's uncomfortable, to deal with an uncomfortable emotion. At the end of the day, a lot of money self-sabotage is emotional. I think a lot of it is about whether or not we feel comfortable, what money says about our self-worth, how it makes us feel, if we're going to be shamed or judged if we open a bill and it's bigger than we thought it was going to be, if we take a little bit more time to pay it, right? That's all emotional. So that's where money, our money stories and our like self-sabotage around money is really about dealing with uncomfortable emotions and being able to just emotionally be more literate.
That's actually really unlocked something for me because I get scared to open a parking fine, which where I live is only like $30, but I know I can pay the $30, but I just don't know why I wouldn't just open it. So I feel like it's the emotional side of like, can I handle the feelings of having a parking fine?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, it's procrastination essentially. And procrastination is an emotion regulation issue. If you procrastinate in doing something, oftentimes it's because there's an emotion that you don't know how to handle. So like if I procrastinate finishing an essay for, the New York Times, I might procrastinate because I'm worried it's not good enough, right? I might be uncomfortable with the story I'm writing. I might feel overwhelmed by the amount of research I have to do. So you procrastinate. Same thing with money. You don't open, the high yield savings account because you feel like you're too old. So then you don't do it because you're like, well, it's already too late. That's A, black and white thinking. So that's a cognitive distortion. And second, emotionally, you probably feel bad about yourself because you've waited so long. So then you don't do it. So really, it's about navigating those hard emotions that come up and then doing the hard thing anyway.
That explains a lot because we have a lot of women in our community that go, I'm 42, I feel like it's too late to invest. And I'm like, you're only 42? Like, we're here for another 60 years, like at least. Yeah. It's like the barrier, the age is a barrier.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I totally feel that too. I'm 36 and I probably seriously started planning for long-term, investing wealth, my future 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And, I think it's easy with social media for us to compare each other. I think that's a form of scarcity mindset, a feeling like you're in competition or someone else has something you don't have, therefore you can't have it, right? Goes back to the psychology of it, which is like, if you have it, then I can't have it, which is like, it just leads us up for failure. I think really what needs to happen is we need to have self-compassion. And that is a form of emotion regulation, being able to say, it's okay. How do I talk to myself kindly? How do I affirm myself in a way to honor what I've lived through, what I've experienced, why it's taken me so long, rather than saying, oh man, you're so dumb, you waited so long until you started doing this. And I've had to do that for myself, right? I could have started maybe when I was 18 and working as a waitress, but I never did that. I didn't know. I wasn't taught. So I've learned to give myself compassion and say, okay, instead of framing it from what I haven't done, what can I do now? And how am I doing things that maybe my elders were never taught? And how is that in itself a privilege and so amazing to say, wow, I'm already like light years ahead in so many ways.
And also, I believe that if you compare yourself to like, I wish I'd started younger, like that doesn't end. Like you could go as far as like, I wish I had started investing my like pocket money or my birthday money. Like
I know.
It doesn't end. I wish I was born into a different family. Like
I know. Yeah, it really doesn't end. And it's just a way to not take accountability for then doing the thing right now, I think. And that's such a hard truth. I said that so matter-of-factly, but as a therapist, I know that's such a hard truth for people to swallow is like, it's okay, but what are you going to do about it now? And if you don't do something about it now, if you can, then aren't you perpetuating the same cycle that you don't want to be in? And it's your fault. Like there comes a point where we have to take accountability and say, I'm either deciding to do something differently or I'm deciding not to, and I'm going to feel bad about it.
Can we talk about that a little bit more? Because I agree, it's a hard truth. It's uncomfortable, but when it comes to money, it's important to have hard conversations.
It's so important. I mean, I think culturally, we're not really taught to talk about money, right? I think the work you do is incredible because it's defying what so many of us have been taught about money. Even talking about money with just my husband was really hard for me because I was never taught that it can be a partnership conversation. It was one person made the decisions. Now I'm starting to talk about money with other therapists and speakers to even ask, what rate did you ask for at this company? What did you get paid? Some people don't even want to have that conversation with me. You know, it's a capitalist mindset in itself. It's scarcity. It's a fear of, again, the emotional aspect of it. Well, did I undercharge? Am I going to be judged for what I asked for? Am I going to, is she going to like not want to talk to me anymore if I tell her the true number? If she gets it, am I going to get something less next time, right? There's an emotional aspect around it. But I think everything I do as a therapist is about having those hard conversations with other people, but also with ourselves. And we can't have those hard conversations with other people if we can't have them with ourselves. That's why, in the therapy world, you always hear the saying of like, people can only go as deep with other people as they can go with themselves. Mm-hmm. So if you can't talk to yourself honestly, even just with your journal in the mirror by yourself in private, you don't have to share it with anyone, and just say, this is what I'm scared of when it comes to money. This is how I've been handling my money. This is what I want for my money. This is what I learned about my money. You need to start there because that's the only way to then bring it to light. Shame stops existing when we bring light to it. And then you can decide, well, is there someone I trust that I can talk to? Maybe it's a financial advisor and a total stranger because you're not comfortable telling your friends yet. That's okay. But then that's the only way for you to then decide what the next step is going to be. Mm-hmm. But so many of us don't even want to have that conversation with ourselves because it is so hard.
It's very confronting to do. I wanted to talk about, a lot of times people have this kind of block between themselves and deserving wealth. Mm. And you might say things like, having money is selfish, or rich people aren't good people, or, how much is enough? You shouldn't want too much. How do we get through that?
That's such a good question. I see that a lot. And honestly, personally, I feel that a lot too, right? I think it goes back to that self-sabotage of can I be paid for the work I want to do? Mm-hmm. Because at what point is it quote unquote taking advantage of the community, or at what point is it asking for too much? And everyone will always have an opinion on something, right? You either charge too little, you charge too much, whatever. Everyone, I think this. Everyone's always going to have an opinion. But I think, it's really important for us to, again, I'm going to take it back to culture, but in order to decolonize these conversations, we have to think of culturally, systemically, we need money to survive. We live in a capitalist world. I wish we didn't, but we do, right? We need literally money to exist, to survive, to take care of ourselves, to take care of our kids, to take care of our kin, our loved ones. So even if we take out planning for the future, just to be a person who survives today, we all need money. And so even framing it in that way sometimes can just lessen the pressure of it's okay to earn money. It's okay to make money. Then you can go to the next rung in the ladder, which is what am I deserving of in the role that I play or in the work that I'm doing, right? Sometimes it might mean finding actual evidence. How can you research what other people get paid in this role? How can you talk to people? How can you find mentors who can help you understand that? And then that can help you get to the third level and the third rung, which is more on like the mental emotional aspect of like, how do I get comfortable with this, right? Think about a values-driven life, right? If you make more money, then you can give money to the places that matter to you. This can be the organizations. This can then do work for free in one space because you're able to make it in this space. That's how I try to think about money. I have 6 streams of income in my business, and a lot of the more money-making streams are like the speaking engagements, the ones that come from bigger corporations. That helps me then feel better to say, okay, when I do this work for the community, I can do it for less money. I can work with a nonprofit for free, and I'm finding out a way to then decide that. But if I wasn't making that money, I wouldn't be able to do this, right? And so even framing it from a values-driven way that's like, if I make this money, it doesn't make you a bad person. You actually then get to decide what to do with it, which is the fun part. And I think so many of us forget that reframe. Instead, it's like money is bad because money means capitalism. Money means, what we see on the news right now with billionaires and how they're spending it. But that's not always the case. And so I really do think it's I'm going to keep repeating this, but it's a mental and emotional block.
What would be like if you could just be maybe more blunt or more honest? Like, let's say you were just talking to a little sister that you had that was like, I just don't want to be part of capitalism. I think money is bad. I just don't want to get involved. Like, how do you respond to something like that?
Well, what's the alternative right now?
Yeah.
Like, you just by existing in this world, you are a part of capitalism, even if you don't want to be. So what's holding you back from being a part of it? Is it because of what you're seeing and how it's hurting people and like the negative aspects of it? If so, that's okay. I feel that too. And I think a lot of people feel that. And again, that doesn't instead, I think what I would tell them is sometimes being a part of a broken system, it means helping heal the system from the inside. And what I mean by that is I'm a therapist. I work in a broken mental health system. Our mental health system, especially in the West, is awful. I recognize that every day people are trying to figure out if their insurance covers therapy. I have clients who can only afford 1 session a month with me. I get it. And I'm trying to heal the system from within. Does it always feel good? No. Am I a part of a bigger problem in the system? Maybe, but that system already existed. So what do I want to do? What's my role to help change it? And we can't do that from the outside. So if you worry about being a part of a capitalist system, then I get it. Your concerns are valid, but find people like you who are a part of the capitalist system in a way that still aligns with your values. I really think that that's important. I think values work is something that people often forget to do in their life. A lot of times we are so preoccupied with the goals. What will it mean to achieve those goals? When will those goals be enough? How will other people view those goals? Is it prestigious enough? Can I show it to other people? Is it worthy in some way? But really, if you can root in your values and you're a part of a system that doesn't align with you, you're still doing better than a lot of people.
One of the things that comes up with self-sabotaging and deserving of wealth is this idea of kind of being angry or upset at other people who chase more wealth. And how do we navigate those feelings? Because I think it's very hard because on one extreme, there are definitely people that have way more than enough and probably aren't doing the best things in the world with them. And then you've got kind of, your high net worth people that make a lot of money. How do you distinguish what's enough and what's not enough as an individual?
I don't know that I would have general advice for people. I really think it's an individualized answer. I think, though, it goes back to what's coming up for you when you see that. So again, have that hard conversation with yourself. You see someone who has maybe quote unquote too much, isn't spending their money in a way that you think is right? Whatever that is. What comes up for you when you see that? Is it jealousy? Is it anger? Because those are emotions that tell you something. Jealousy is, I want that, right? How do I get there? So then there you go. An emotion is, our emotions literally dictate our behaviors. And so if you can decide what your emotion is, you can then figure out what the steps need to be after that. And so if you're feeling jealous, it's, okay, what do I do to get to that place? Is there something I can change? Can I invest differently? Can I make more money? Can I spend less? Whatever it is. If it's anger, then that might be a core value saying it's not right that some people have X amount of money. Now that might mean doing more on the ground work, right? Community activism, policy work, whatever it is, right? It's getting rooted in that value that is coming up from the emotion that you're feeling. I think often, though, what happens is it is jealousy. I think people feel like, well, why am I struggling if that person isn't? Or, if there's so much of this to go around, how come we see people who are starving and don't have money? And I think that that's a really hard thing for us to digest. I mean, it's something, I don't know that I have advice on that because I see that every day. For me, it's really hard to be like, why are some people happy and comfortable and other people aren't, right? It's not because some people are more deserving. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's a matter of just what you've been born into, what you have access to. It comes back to systemic inequity and culture and capitalism and oppression. And I think those are really hard things because I think when you talk about money, there are certain things we can control, there are certain things we can do, and then there are certain things we cannot control. And we have to differentiate those. We have to differentiate what's in your control versus what's not in your control.
That's a really good segue into the next question I had for you, which is that for those of us that are, growing more wealth than maybe our parents have had or families have had, and oftentimes these are, women that have had immigrant parents that have come over, they've worked hard to set up a foundation and they've allowed us to thrive.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those complex emotions of, oh my God, I'm so privileged and yet I still also don't feel like I'm enough? Like there's so many complex feelings around it.
Yeah. I think when we have complex feelings, when we start to generalize what we're feeling and generalize like the idea of what is right, what is wrong, what we're feeling, we have to really you have to get specific. I do this work with my clients a lot, which is like, sometimes I'll have a client be like, well, I'm just feeling really frustrated or I'm feeling really overwhelmed. Okay, well, let's break that down. If you had to decide right now, what specifically is frustrating you, one thing, what would it be? And I think that's a really hard question for people to answer, but it's an important one because the more specific you can get, the more you can tackle that specific feeling and issue that is coming up for you. And I have felt like this. I have felt like I'm, living kind of a more freer life than my parents did. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily better off yet. I think I might end up being better off than them, but I am better off than my mom because she never worked. But I've had to also reframe then. We have to sometimes reframe the way we're telling the story to ourselves. For me, the reframe is, well, my grandparents, and my parents my grandparents had an idea that success was for their kids was marriage and having kids. So it was like, if you were a son, it was how do you provide in that marriage? If you were a daughter, it was how do you have kids and, be marriageable and be a good wife, essentially. So then my parents internalized for them, that was, they were by all intents and purposes really successful. They got married, they had 3 kids. My dad was able to provide for a family of 5. And then they passed down their definition of success to their kids, me and my siblings, which was, okay, academics. You need to be educated. No one can take education away from you. That was one thing my dad always told me. And for him, he didn't mean any education. He meant like very traditional college, grad school, that kind of education, and have like a very niche, job, like lawyer, doctor, engineer, etc. My brother, by the way, is a lawyer and a doctor. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
Which one did he do first?
Law, then medicine. Yeah, and so he's a doctor now, but he still has his law degree, and sometimes we'll do stuff with it. And
he's not thinking of becoming an engineer after.
No, but he is doing more like business stuff now.
Oh,
I know. Yeah. Anyway, so passing down that definition of success, and then I think for our generation is kind of in this really privileged area where we're like, oh, we can kind of redefine it because of the momentum of like, okay, that first generation was like the family, then that family was education, and now it's like, what do we do with what we have? And I think reframing it in that way is understanding the different generational mindsets, because if you can separate those generational mindsets, you can stop internalizing someone else's mindset. Does that make sense? So like it doesn't make sense for me to internalize my parents' mindset. They lived in a different time. They were parented in a different way. They were taught different things. They had different values. So I'm a different person living in a different country, growing up in a different country, living in a different marriage, living in a different city, being able to work a different job that they never had access to. So why would my definition of success be the same as theirs? It wouldn't. It would be different. So that just feels very matter of fact to me. So then I'm not going to feel guilty for redefining it or doing things differently. That doesn't mean I don't feel guilt. It just means I'm, have to remind myself that I'm literally, it's like we're playing a different board game but we're trying to beat each other.
Do you find that there is a way to look at ambition and the ambition that we have and see it as a form of healing rather than a form of betrayal?
Absolutely. I love the idea of ambition because I think when people think of ambition, they think just like working hard, which makes sense, right? We all want to work hard towards something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key that we're missing is the second part of that, which is working hard towards what? And I think when I think of ambition, I have friends who are ambitious about living a soft life. They are teachers who love spending their weekends at home with their kids in their backyard. And for me, I'm like, that is a friend who is very ambitious about protecting that kind of life. And I love that for that friend. And other people are ambitious about different things, maybe making it, moving up in a company or having a startup or accumulating X amount of wealth or being able to travel to X amount of countries or whatever. And I think that we all kind of have those things that we want inside of us, and we can be ambitious about those things, but it'll look very different from other people's ambition. Ambition is not just working hard, it's working hard for the thing that would really add meaning to your life and make your life feel, more purposeful.
So how would we then define what that looks like for us? Like if we were like sitting at home and going, okay, that sounds like something I need to do, what would be like the steps?
It's values work. It's simply values work.
I have to like think about what I want.
I know. And values work is like what I do with my clients all the time. It's just, especially if you come from a collectivist background where you just inherited values, so it's really important for you to get clear on what your values really are. So like some of that work is just thinking about what are the values in the culture you live in. So I would maybe, for instance, say, okay, let me think about American values because I grew up in an American culture. And I would also think about Indian values because I grew up in an Indian Punjabi household. I would make a list. I would say, okay, here are 3 American values. Here are 3 Punjabi values. Here are 3 values I think my parents abide by. Here are the 3 values I think I live by, or I want to live by. Then I would look at those values and I'd say, they are really different, or they're overlapping, or wow, I actually value the same things as my dad, or, I don't value anything from the American culture, whatever it is, right? You just see it written down and you're able to compare and contrast what they look like. And then the last question you ask yourself is, what are the values you're actually living by right now? And then when you see that next to the ones you want to live by with all the ones that you've kind of inherited, you'll be able to say, okay, I'm actually living the values my mom wants me to live, but they're not the values I want to be living. That's how you decide what is important to you. When do you feel the most at peace with yourself? When do you feel the most angry? Because that means a value is often being like crossed in some way. When you feel the most peace or you feel the most happy, that's when you're often living out your values. Who's someone you admire? What values do you think they live by? These are ways for you to really understand what is important to you. And I'm not saying you need to always get clear on it, all 5 of them or all 3 of them, even if you can pick one value, right? So maybe that is loyalty, right? And then you might take that term loyalty and you might say, how am I being loyal to the company I work for? How is that costing me? How is that helping me, right? Asking, once you can pick a value, you can start to think about it in all terms of your life. And I think that's just an important way for you to understand what meaning looks like in your life.
I'm thinking about when I get the most angry, and right now it's like wedding planning.
Wedding planning, yeah. Well, that's also probably because like how capitalized and commodified the wedding industry is. Yeah. I don't know. I'm projecting.
That's a lot.
That was it for me.
It's a lot of it, and also
everyone else's opinions.
Yeah, and not having the freedom to just kind of do it the way I want to, because I really value independence and freedom.
Exactly. So yeah,
that's really helpful. I'd have one final really important question that I want to ask. Okay. And it's not an easy one, so feel free to expand into this as much as you need. But what are the small ways that we can sort of reparent ourselves when it comes to our money?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, reparenting is, this idea of tending to your inner child. And so if you think about who you were as a kid and what you did or didn't get, that's the first step. And that is probably the hardest step, because you're then going back and saying, oh, this is for me, for example, if I'm being very honest. My parents loved me so much, and they put a roof over my head. They fed me every day. They, set me up for success of like financially putting money aside for me to go to college, of, having me do all these extracurriculars, teaching me discipline and, work ethic and all this stuff. And I didn't really feel emotionally tended to growing up. I was, not put to bed. I wasn't like given a bedtime story. I wasn't hugged when I was sad. I wasn't celebrated when I felt joy. My emotions often felt too big. So over the years, as I've been in therapy for the last 10 years, I've had to think about reparenting myself. How do I make space for my emotions? How do I not shame myself when I feel something? How do I find people of support who can hold me when I'm sad, right? Those are ways I'm reparenting myself. It's essentially giving myself what I didn't get when I was younger. You know, it's not something you just do once and you're like, okay, I've reparented myself. It's a lifelong journey of understanding what are your triggers, what feels really activating to you. Oftentimes, if you're really activated in the moment, like potentially opening that bill, it might be something from when you were young. Are you going to be shamed? Is it because you were taught something? Is it because you're supposed to be perfect? Is it because you were told that you should never let your bills, exceed a certain amount of money? Or is it because you spent money on something that you were taught was frivolous? Like, these are ways for you to then learn and tie how you deal with money now, or how you engage in your day-to-day life now with what happened when you were younger. And reparenting is more about looking ahead. What is it you can do now to change that for yourself, to really think about it? Think there's imagine there's a little Simran just sitting right next to you, and she's just looking up at you with her little pigtails, and she's just like, I love you, and you take care of me now. Like, you are my home. What do you want to do for her?
Don't make me tear up.
Because she needs you. And that's how we take care of ourselves. If we can personify that person, actually imagine little us, everything we do is for her, for him, for that person.
Mm-hmm. You are such an incredible speaker. I have to
thank
say.
you.
And an even better writer. And
thanks.
Your book, But What Will People Say, has done so well. I have seen it everywhere. Thanks. Where can people buy it? Where can we find you? How can we support?
Oh, you're so sweet. Anywhere you buy books, honestly, you can pick it up at I think around the world, most bookstores. It is in 12 countries. I know it's not in every country. I get messages about this, but there's e-versions. I narrate the audiobook. So if you like that, I'm pretty sure Spotify has it for free, like most books. And then if you want to buy it on I don't know, because this is very American, but like Libro FM or some kind of audio app, or the library. And if you want to support, often I'm like, ask your local bookstore to hold it and to buy it. You don't even have to purchase it. Just ask them to have it in stock.
Where can we find you on socials?
Yes, you can. So I've kind of had this ecosystem for adult children of immigrants. I have an Instagram account called Brown Girl Therapy. I have a podcast called So We've Been Told. I have a newsletter community of 10,000 people where we get together every month, and it's more community focused. And I write essays there called Culturally Enough. My book, But What Will People Say? I do speaking engagements. You can find a lot of my work and events and stuff on my website, sahajkohli.com. And if anyone listening is a really good business coach, you can just email me so we can talk, because I am looking for one.
I will talk to you after this.
My way of using this as a call out.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This was so
amazing.
good.